SportsLit is co-founded and co-hosted by Neil Acharya and Nate Sager. Technical producer and engineer, Michael Ella. Executive producer, Neil Acharya. Welcome to SportsLit. I'm Neil Acharya.
And I am Nathan Sager.
Joining us from Turkey, Canadian soccer great Atiba Hutchinson discusses The Beautiful Dream, a memoir, written with Dan Robson and released by Penguin Random House Canada and Viking Press.
Atiba Hutchinson has come full circle in his footballing life, from his dad taxiing him around the Greater Toronto area to find good competition for training, to having his name on the soccer facilities he's founded where the next gen in his hometown of Brampton can play and picture bright days ahead. Those dots connect Hutchinson to the hard-won growth of Canadian men's soccer, which he expands upon in The Beautiful Dream, a memoir written with past SportsLit guest Dan Robson. The retired midfielder can sort of see it from both sides. He came of age when Canada had 0 Major League Soccer franchises and no national stadium, and now the nation's going to be dropping a few $100 million to co-host games in the next FIFA World Cup, with Canada obviously playing as a host, but he also got to cap off his career effectively with that World Cup qualifying campaign. Now, reflecting back on how fun that was to follow in late 2021 and 2022 when Hutchinson was the veteran captain, what did we really know of him beyond, his position as a midfielder, his club team, Besiktas, and being one of the squad's 7 players from Brampton, Ontario, and that he could self-describe as a grandfather in a young man's game? Beyond those basic bio details, there was a lot to fill in,
Absolutely. I mean, as you've alluded to, the book really shows what he and the program had to go through to get to respectability, and respectability ultimately was won through a World Cup appearance and qualification for that 2022 World Cup in Qatar. And as you mentioned, what did we know about Atiba? I mean, there's a diehard soccer core in this country that knew all about Atiba, I'm sure, but the average fan, I mean, Atiba acknowledges while he was playing pro in Europe in places like Denmark and Turkey, he was recognized everywhere he went, but when he came back to Canada for Christmas, Canada being his home, he wasn't recognized anywhere, and it didn't really bother him per se, but it showed him, the stark differences in awareness. And now it was the World Cup that did bring him to the forefront here to the masses, though the idea for the book happened prior to reaching that point. It certainly helped it along, I'm sure, in terms of the narrative and in terms of exposure for Atiba. As for Europe, he played there from 2003 to 2023. He won league titles in Denmark, the Netherlands, Turkey, and he spent his last 10 seasons in Turkey with Besiktas, as you mentioned. That's a top flight team in that country, and they have a fervent following, which is really described in detail in the book. But Nate, again, we go back to the point of what makes his path there to Europe so significant is how hard it was to get there, given the state of what he came through here in Canada at the youth level and with the national program.
Yeah, you think of now, he began his career in 2003. Well, now a player who came into the world that time was now about 21. There is a developmental path of, start out with a club in Canada and move up and get transferred over there, like Kwasi Puku went from Forge FC right here in Hamilton, where I live, to, they get about, I think, $600,000 in a transfer fee, though there was nothing quite like that. It was a interesting path that a player in the 90s, when Atiba was, coming of age as a teenager, had to navigate. Hutchinson, throughout the book, he shares how much his parents, Dalton and Myrtle, sacrificed and hustled so he could find places to play and train, and how his dad got inventive to make sure he had an idea of what was out there in the wider world. And it's kind of this neat parallel narrative, because we all know the sort of origin story type myths with hockey. Maybe and we're starting to learn them with basketball too in Canada. In hockey, it's you're waking up before dawn to practice, and you've got the 15-minute drive, but there is a community arena to go to. And in soccer, it's all over the place. It was all over the place back then. The infrastructure lagged far behind the talent level and the passion for the sport, as so often happens in Canada. So I think I winced when Atiba mentioned getting driven to downtown Toronto to the infamous Lamport Stadium, because I knew it had this hard, infamously high-crowned artificial turf surface. And that's when, in the Canada's national teams, the men's national team, they'd be playing at run-down varsity stadium. And I think Hutchinson's first thoughts at playing internationally, revolved around Trinidad and not Canada, even though Canada had made a World Cup appearance. Anyway, through all that devotion and talent and just hunger, drive, family support, he managed to get over to Europe without a lot of developmental time in Canada.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we talked about a couple of those themes prior, right? I mean, the next book, we won't probably see this. This is kind of building on what Dero wrote, and just one step ahead as Atiba's 5 years younger than Atiba. The next person, as you mentioned, Coco, may not have to. The narrative may be completely different, as the infrastructure is now there, and there's something to build on. The Beautiful Dream is like a compendium to Dwayne De Rosario's book, Dero, written with Brendan Dunlop. The book was released in 2022, and Dero and Brendan joined us prior to the World Cup. Now, the book was written prior to the official qualification and released prior to the official qualification. We talked to him right around that time, and that book gives us an honest assessment of Dero being part of that broken national program and how Canada was viewed internationally when it came to football. Dero points out in that book, and he's pointed out in previous articles, that he went to the AC Milan youth trials, and he was kind of belittled by Edgar Davids, an international star, for being Canadian. So again, Atiba being 5 years younger, this book, The Beautiful Dream, builds on those themes from Dero, and how the program was pushed forward, and how Canada qualified for the last World Cup. Atiba, of course, held on just long enough to see the promised land. And he credits John Herdman for creating the culture and tactical shift to get over the hump. Now, it should be noted that Herdman has since left the national program, and he's the coach of TFC, but he has come under fire following the independent review that just came out on November 12th, in which Bev Priestman was fired for using a drone with her staff to spy during the Olympics on New Zealand. So he is part of that fallout. Bev Priestman was an assistant coach under Herdman from 2011 to 2018, but nonetheless, Atiba does write very highly of Herdman in this book, and what he did to get the program into the World Cup. So soccer, Canadian soccer has taken a setback, but it looks as though they can weather this storm, and an automatic bye to the World Cup as host country certainly helps that. So we'll talk to Atiba, who went from dreaming of playing for his parents' birth country of Trinidad and Tobago, as it was the only realistic option in his young mind, to, as you mentioned, captaining his country second ever appearance in the World Cup 2 years ago.
Since he retired as a player in 2023, Hutchinson and his wife Sarah and their 4 young children have been living in Turkey, so we are straddling an 8-hour time difference to talk to Atiba Hutchinson. Now, please, if you get a chance, visit sportslit.ca, where there is an archive of all of our episodes since 2017 and links to buy the books.
And here we are on SportsLit. Very, very excited today for both myself, Neil Acharya, and Nate Sager to have Atiba Hutchinson join us. Atiba, we've described you off the top in our intro, so we're going to go straight into the questions. And I want to ask you, first of all, your playing days ended in 2023, but you're still in Turkey. What does life entail these days for Atiba Hutchinson in Turkey with his family?
Just a lot of family time. I got 4 young kids, 3 boys and a baby girl, and they're all just here in school. And just as I retired, I just wanted to take some time off and just have some family times, be with the kids as much as possible, which I didn't get a very good chance at doing that while playing, just due to the fact that I was always traveling and whatnot. But just home more with them now, and raising a family and just enjoying that. We're still in Turkey. It's a great place. I played here for 10 seasons, and just living here because we absolutely love it, and just trying to figure out what's next for us in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually doing some of my research yesterday. I even read that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but did John Herdman not say that he would have thought you might have been a good replacement for the manager of Team Canada?
Well, he's also spoken about that, while we were together when he was coaching, playing there. But he always really thought highly of me as a leader, and those are some of the things that he had mentioned. But for now, and just as I said, enjoying what I'm doing, but you never know later on down the road. I really do miss the game. I obviously love the game. I know it. That's what I know best. So we'll see. I still watch a lot of football. I'm still, close with the team, the national team. We'll see what the future holds.
So on the note of the book, we cover books, and as I think it might be Nate. You can let me know what our 80th book we've covered, and you kind of get the idea of the publishing industry. And most of the cases, someone is approached to write the book. It's not always like the athlete or the coach or whoever is saying, "Hey, I want to write this book." So my question to you is, with that in mind, how did the World Cup appearance for Canada, do you think, catalyze the desire for a Canadian publisher to want to print your story?
Yeah, it was kind of in the build up towards the World Cup as we started getting closer and closer. Dan and my good friend, who was, as you mentioned, like athletes don't really think that they'll go and write a book. And I have a really close friend of mine who, for many, many years, was always saying, at some point I should write a book. And, we all got together and got on a call. We had a meeting at a dinner, and, they both thought like this would be a great story. Dan Robson, the author, was really intrigued by all of, my story and what it would take for us to write a book. And, we had good, energy with each other, and we just really thought, look, this would be, something special to do. And I think we did a good thing in doing this, and I'm happy at the end that I did go through with this. And mainly it's about me just trying to reach out to people and kind of tell my story, and hopefully help persuade people along their path at teaching them things that I had gone through.
So was it before the World Cup or in the lead up then that they kind of approached you? Because I'm wondering, you kind of, they want that big hook, a lot of publishers. So I'm thinking, Atiba's name all of a sudden, as it is what it is in Canada, and you write about what it is in Turkey, you get stopped everywhere you go in Turkey. All of a sudden, does that World Cup make this a bigger driver, you think, for them?
Yeah, for sure. So it was before the World Cup, but we were pretty close to qualifying.
Okay. Right.
Okay. It was going to end with the World Cup. And in the back of my mind, I wasn't sure whether I would, be going to that World Cup 100% or not.
Wow.
It meant another season for me of playing. So, that's basically how we got started. And then we said, look, we're real close to it. Qualifying was the main thing. And then if I could keep myself fit and end up playing in a World Cup, that would just be the cherry on top. And that's it all unfolded. So at the end, it was a great story.
Awesome. Go ahead, Nate.
And Atiba, what's it mean to sort of have your story out there, especially just relating to people, how your family, your dad, your mom, how you were just this sort of hungry soccer family, and your dad was improvising all these ways and hustling to get you opportunities and exposure?
Yeah, I think it means a lot because, as we all know, especially back in the days, it was never easy for anyone to, be playing football or soccer and become professionally out in Europe. It was not an easy path, and it took a lot of hard work and a lot of trusting in myself, having a good family that would support me when things weren't going right, always backing me and really pushing me on. And we came from Trinidad, went to Canada, and basically my parents started a new life there, and that's where they raised us. But it's just a true testament to the hard work that I had put in. And I think sometimes when I was younger, I would always look at stories like that where people maybe hadn't had a easy path at making it to where they got to. So I think it's a perfect example for what I had done.
And I can think of, from my own childhood, being a few years older than you, like the whole, mom gets you up for hockey practice at six before dawn and drives you to an arena. But what was it sort of like the grind and the hustle for, when you're say a 12-year-old kid in 1995 and, you just wanted it on a sheer hunger? What were you doing, and what were your parents doing on a typical, weekday morning to make it possible?
Yeah, very similar to what you had mentioned. We had days where we would have to train out in the freezing cold in Lamport Stadium in Toronto, where a lot of people probably would, just throw in the towel at that point. And early wake ups, driving, an hour and a half for, games or tournaments. And as much as you love it, it's still like for a younger kid, it's still hard, and you got to be mentally, prepared to go through that. And I just really wanted to stick at it. As I said, I really just enjoyed the game. I loved it so much, and that was it was what I needed to do to just continue to push myself in the right track.
And one day that would help you, right? I mean, one day all that you'd maybe look back on that when you were at Ice Teca, thinking, you know what, maybe it was a good thing I trained in 0 degrees.
100%. Although Ice Teca was something, it was different, but yeah, those days help for sure. You kind of reflect back on those days when you're younger, and it's gets you prepared for those moments.
It is interesting because, I'm glad Nate brought that up and you answered it, because it's interesting because we think about, and we're not going to make this about hockey, but Nate, you brought up the hockey example and getting up and, going. In your case, it's a lot of that travel really in Toronto had to do with going to somewhere to find it. Like I think you write about driving across the 401 to maybe play at a bubble in Scarborough, because it might be the only other one next to the one in Brampton, right? Like there was, I guess, not as many places to kind of play, right?
That's right. Yeah. There's not that many teams nearby. A couple teams, but for the most part, you got to pick up and drive to other cities to play against good competition and whatnot. And sometimes that's what it takes. Like you got to be ready for those moments. Just wherever you got to go, you got to go. If it's a flight as well, we would take some flights. So those little things,
Yeah. Oh, it definitely comes across. You and Dan do a good job of kind of hammering that home, and it kind of shows the first person growth of the game in the country, because we've heard all about it. And I mean, both myself and Nate are of an age where we've kind of tracked it too and seen how hard it was for the national program to grow. And you see that kind of through how the players at the youth level like yourself had to grow, and the situations weren't always ideal in terms of resources and infrastructure, but that's grown. And it's interesting too, just going back to you as a player, when me and Nate were talking yesterday about some of the questions we wanted to ask you. One of the things we both thought about was the way the decisions, the very I guess directed decisions, if that's the right word, you and your dad made towards how your career would grow. And I'll read a passage. This is one of the passages I'm going to read today, but this one, it's very quick. It says, "When it comes to playing time, it's the coach who decides your fate. I learned early on in my career to make sure that I was part of the coach's vision before joining a team. Ståle Solbakken made it clear that he wanted me in Copenhagen." So I wanted to ask you, how does the book kind of affirm to anyone reading it the idea of finding the right fit for growth versus maybe just parking yourself somewhere that seems to be the right place, but it's not necessarily going to allow you to grow?
Yeah, I think it's what's important is you kind of have to have a good feeling of how you're gonna develop, and for me, I'd heard stories and seen in other parts where maybe you make a move and you're unsure about it. You haven't even really gotten to sit down and speak to whoever it may be, if it's your coach or your boss, and kind of get a feedback of how they see you. So for me, I knew that, a coach believed in me. He talked about, my qualities and what I could bring to the team. And I thought that was the perfect place for me to go, because I knew that he would trust in me when he needed me to perform. Sometimes you go places and it might not be the best start, but you have somebody that's behind you and knows that, you have the ability. So for me, like growing, that was always important for me. I knew I was going to get chance after chance. And obviously with a lot of hard work, that's the most important. But just knowing that this is the right thing to help you just take that next step, I felt was important. I think a lot of people could relate to that.
And your dad, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the book, you write about that being kind of the mindset you had early on. Maybe if I remember correctly, was it not about positioning, like where you'd play in the field or who you'd play with to get the most touches? Was also kind of a very deliberate decision by you and your dad from an early age?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We spoke about how my good friend, actually, I mentioned at the top of the show, his name is Alex. He was playing as a midfielder when we were younger. I was a striker. And at some point, my dad thought I needed to get on the ball more. So to change positions and go into the midfield, because as a midfielder, you're on the ball and you're making things happen. And that was huge in my development and really helped me push forward. So those are one of the things that, he's seen that was important for me.
So, Nate, should I jump in on this passage here? Or I don't want to. Nate, do you have a?
Well,
I
had a couple things too. Like with I guess at that age when you sort of made the decision, Atiba, to you and your dad talked about moving to midfield. Like how much maybe did you offer resistance at that point, knowing that, okay, this means I'm not going to score as many goals?
Yeah.
But
oh yeah, for sure. I remember it like clearly, because I was scoring a lot of goals at the time, and that when you're young, that's all you really want to do is score goals. So I was really disappointed, and he persuaded me somehow. And to be honest, after I made the switch, I really did feel like it was worth it, because I started playing more. I started getting more confidence, and I'm touching the ball a lot more. And that's what I needed. My feet were not as good as I needed them to be. So that really helps a lot when you're in those type of positions on the pitch, where you get to just show yourself a little bit more. And but definitely in the beginning, a lot of resistance. And in the end, I think it was the perfect step and move for me to make.
yeah, and how much is that? Just I'll throw in quickly for the listeners. When you wrote about that, it made me think of the great hockey. And I keep going with hockey analogies. Maybe
Right.
my brain's a little tired, but Paul Coffey kind of grew up in a similar part of the GTA, and I remember when he decided to become a defenseman instead of a center, his dad was like, "Paul, it's about the fact there's 4 defensemen on the team and 9 forwards. You'll play a lot more."
Yeah.
And I just wanted to sort of touch base on that. Was like what can you sort of use to sort of illustrate about always having a sort of a growth mindset and like I say, realizing, okay, my long-term development, I need to be better and have the ball more. So this is where I belong.
Well, yeah, one thing I could say to that is that it's not very easy to take a striker, because you're pretty much one on the pitch. You got a couple midfielders, you got 2 wingers, a right back, left back, and then center backs. So to be a striker, it's not easy to get through. So for me, like going into midfield, as we said, it just helped me so much, just with my positioning, with reading the game, with the understanding of the game. I just felt like I was taking the steps that I didn't have for a very long time. And since going into that position, that's the position I pretty much throughout the rest of my career. Occasionally I would play, a few other positions, but for me, I think without making that move at that time, I don't know if I get to where I got to. So it was pretty huge in making that step.
So there was a passage that I read a little bit, and I'm gonna read another one right now. And just to context, but I'll ask you the question after. The context here is your dad, and I love this part. This part because I'm a little older than you. I'm D Rose age, so I'm about 5 years older than you. Nate, 6 years older than you, and so I think I speak for Nate. When our first football. By the way, I noticed this: that soccer, if I'm not mistaken, is not referred to in the book at all. It's always called football. So I wonder if that was deliberate on your part, because I don't remember the sport ever being called soccer in the pages of your book.
Yeah, I've been living in Europe too long. Like more than half in all my professional career has been in Europe. Everyone calls it football here. I've gotten so used to it.
Yeah, no, that's one thing that stood out, and also for me to watch football or soccer, you have to watch a show called Soccer Saturday, which might be a bit before your time. Your dad probably watched it and it used to come every Saturday afternoon or morning on TSN with a host named Graham Leggett, who played in Scotland. And then I do remember what it was like to. All of a sudden, you're like, you want to watch soccer, you don't know how, where are you going to watch it? And then satellite kind of comes in, and then there it is. And so that kind of comes along with your rise in the game, not rise in the game, but you're getting older. By the time you're about, well, I'm going to say getting into your teenage years, you finally can watch soccer because your dad gets a satellite dish. And that allows you to watch Dwight York, who's blowing up with Man U. And it allows you to envision yourself playing internationally in a new way. So I'm just going to read this passage and then ask you a question. So this is going straight into Dwight York. Dwight York became the league's top goal scorer and was named Premier League Player of the Season. It was huge. I had spent so much time hearing stories from my father about playing football back in Trinidad. Then I witnessed a player who shared my heritage, become one of the most dominant players in the world. York became the model for the kind of player I hoped to be. I loved his game. His first touch was just smooth. He was elegant on the pitch. He was from my world, a product of my culture, and he had conquered football. Because of that connection, the dream that my father passed to me seemed much less far away. Like him, I wanted to play for Manchester United one day. And like him, I hoped to play for my family's homeland, Trinidad and Tobago. My parents both still had passports from the country, which meant that I was eligible. For a long time, I thought about the one day representing Trinidad. Like my father, who had dreamed of doing when he was young. Back then, the idea of playing for Canada didn't even enter my mind. As a kid, I couldn't quite comprehend the complex beauty of the Canadian dream I was experiencing. My family was from two places at once, which was a beautiful part of our experience. And that of so many others who came to make Canada home. So, very moving passage and it thought-provoking on many ways. And I think, it's interesting in that at that point, where is Canadian soccer at? I mean, how far behind are we where you're in Canada and you're thinking, hey, you know what, maybe I want to play for Trinidad, because is it your only option, or are you realizing your dad's dream, or what is it, a combination of all of those things?
Yeah, I think at the time, Canada was extremely far behind because they maybe just didn't do a good enough job at promoting the game and getting people out to go and watch, their games when they would play their home games. Mm-hmm. They didn't play too many games at home. To be honest. So for me, it was not just me, but all my friends around me, they all had the same feelings about representing or playing for their homeland countries, where their parents would come from. So, when I got the chance, I would watch Trinidad, and, you just mentioned Dwight York. He was someone that, I always watched. I loved the way he played. So that's how I felt when I was young. I really wanted to play for Trinidad. And it's not until I started getting older and, I got the call-ups to represent Canada. Obviously, it was huge that I got the call-up because you're still getting a chance to represent the country you come from. But it just wasn't in my mind at the time. And, that's just how it was back in the days. Obviously, it's come a long way since then. But yeah, that helped me. Like watching Dwight York all the time, learning him, as I sit there with his first touch, like that's something I really wanted to work so much on, is getting a really good touch, because if someone like that could be with a touch like that playing in the Premier League at one of the best clubs in the world, that's what it takes. So watching games week in, week out, it just drove me that much more, and I wanted to achieve those levels as well.
Yeah, and it is interesting too, right? Because it's, as I said, both myself and Nate are roughly the same age, so you can understand that, right? Because when you're also, and that's just going back to just like how you envision yourself playing and where on an international stage at that point. Even if you went to watch Canada play in the stands, a lot of times you'll probably be outnumbered by the whoever they're playing, right?
Right.
It's interesting how you saw that, and then you watch soccer on satellite, and then you help kind of grow it to where it is now, where if you do go watch Canada play, most of the fans are probably cheering for Canada, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's been a complete 360. I remember watching. I went to watch Canada play against Holland, and there was not many, Canadians in the stadium at all. So even like that time, I'm like, well, what is this? We're in our home country, but there's Canadians here. So it was a strange thing back then, and to see where it's come now, like even my time playing with the national team, it was very similar, where you had games against Mexico, Honduras, and it always felt like an away game. And the tail end of my career, it really really turned around, and just what it does to the players, that feeling that you have when you know that probably 80% of the stadium is going to be there for you.
Right.
It's so huge, like that 12-man effect that they say in football. It's the extra man that is the fans. They're giving you that the man on the pitch, and it's so essential to have that 12th man in football, and it really just makes the team that much stronger. And you could just see what it's done to the program now, and how strong we are when we play our games at home. It's something that we've all wanted for a long time, and it's great to see that that's how it's come.
Nate?
Yeah. I wonder how did the group culture of the national team and the fan culture around it, what had to happen for it to grow to the point where it's like, okay, we're going to play in Edmonton in November, we're going to play in Hamilton at the end of January, and while it's not necessarily comfortable, we know what the other team won't know what hit them.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of planning, from just the staff, the board. We needed to do similar things to what the Mexicans would do to us to make us play at 3:00 in the afternoon. They know that we don't like the heat, or not as accustomed to the heat as they are. So, and then when you get the results, the fans start coming more. We started winning games. We had some good players that were playing out in Europe, and everything just really came together at the right time. And the fans they became really, really important for the whole team, the whole program, the whole country. And I think that's when you started seeing things change.
Go ahead, Nate.
And I imagine too, as well, that was. Did you have any sort of anticipation about that when right around 2018, when you're sort of a player in your mid-30s and you've got a family by this point, and you're like, do I commit for another World Cup cycle, or did it just sort of just materialize almost fully formed?
It did. It just happened. I didn't really have plans of a whole nother cycle. Like I thought there's no way I could do another cycle. And, I mentioned in the book that we spoke, John and I, about coming in, one game at a time. And, I had a good feeling. I really, obviously it was always hard for me to walk away from the team, but I liked the group of guys that were there. I thought there was, so much talent, and I just wanted to just be around and kind of just lead as much as I can, be a captain and just kind of share my experiences that I had. And things just went, one step at a time. We continued to win, and I just said, look, this is not a time that I could walk away, because I see something, big about to happen. And luckily, I stuck with it. Had some injuries along the way, but in the end, it was the best thing for my career, and my whole experience was just truly amazing because of the way it ended with the national team playing in the World Cup.
The beautiful dream. Now, was that your idea for the name of the book, or did Dan come up with that with you, or how did that happen?
That was the three of us, me, Dan, and Alex. We're just thinking of what to title this book, and I thought the way that my whole career, the whole journey went, it sounded right, and it just felt right.
It is a great play on the beautiful game. So with Copenhagen, you enjoyed success both domestically and internationally. I think it was 5 seasons you played there. And there's is 5 seasons, right, Atiba?
Yeah, it was 4.5. I came in season, yeah.
So sorry, yes, 4.5. Am I correct? Okay, so after the 07-08 season, it's your 3rd season there, you write, and you just won the Danish title. You write, I knew what losing felt like for a winning team. I had to bring that mindset to Canada. I thought that was really interesting. I knew what losing felt like for a winning team. Can you extrapolate? And you write extensively about how competitive you are. Can you extrapolate how winners process and channel losing?
Yeah, it's when you get used to winning, you just wanted that more. And when you lose, you kind of take it hard. Some take it harder than others, but we had guys around us that were just really disappointed and just felt like that wasn't enough. And it's almost like the next day you're right back at it. You got to get back to doing the right things to prepare for the next game. Whether it's doing things individually or bringing the team together, doing something that's going to help us be ready. And we had a season in Copenhagen where it didn't go our way, and the next season we were right back at it. We were flying it, and it started from the preseason. It's every single day you go onto that pitch, you're training hard, you're working hard to better yourself, to be better collectively. So it's just the mindset of just wanting to be at your best and doing what it takes to be at your best. And that's what I've seen from a lot of guys around me, especially in particular in Copenhagen. And that's what really brought more of that winning mentality to my life and my career. So that was essential for me to have a group like that with winners around me and just learn what it takes to be at the top.
So going into the World Cup, that experience, I mean, there's such a build up for Canada, and it happens so quickly, right? It happens pretty quickly. Did you find you were able to harness some of those lessons, like the one you just talked about, and bring that to the team and utilize it during that time? Or was it are you just in such a whirlwind when you're there because everyone's there for the first time?
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. I didn't want to finish there, but
yeah.
Just like the way it all happened fast, man. Like we finished qualifying, and then like the World Cup came around shortly after that. So things went really, really, really quickly. So I don't know. It's funny, man. Like we had games every 3-4 days, and you gotta prepare as much as possible for these games. It was in the middle of the season, so it was all like different than what you're used to for any major tournament. Obviously the team, we performed well without getting any results, but I think we had done well at, putting ourselves on the map and really showing that, Canada's got quality players and we've got a good team. We obviously weren't happy with not, getting any points in the standings, getting through to the next round. But I think all in all, like it was a good experience for us. It was a good way for us to get our feet wet. And we had made a good name for ourselves. But to be fair, it went by so fast. Like, if I could do it all over again, I would just take my time, really just prepare as best as I can. But it was just
Go ahead, Nate.
And Atiba, on the culture point, how does it? What's the challenge like when you're chasing something? You know, it's easy to sort of have the nothing to lose attitude. And now, how do you think the senior men's national team? What's the challenge going to be in keeping that going into this next cycle where they're going to probably play games on home soil in the 2026 World Cup? And you know what maybe you sort of hear. My question maybe goes a little bit to, I know he's a different coach and you've moved on now, but you know what Jesse Marsh is trying to put into the team and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, the team has, over the years now, in a lot better position than we were in the past. So, obviously, we've gotten good results. We've qualified for World Cup. They've done very well now in the Copa America over the summer. What's important is that they continue to push forward and want to be hungry and want to keep, achieving good things and basically not becoming complacent. Because that's easy to do, So we've been a country that came from nowhere. We've had success, but there's a lot more space and a lot more room to grow as a team. And I think Jesse is doing the right things at that. He's made things. He's just added to what we've done. We're playing a very dynamic game now. The boys look hungry. They look like they want to continue to do better and better, and the team is very tight. I think that's what's going to be important. It's anytime you want success, having a close-knit team is always, for me, it's always been one of the main factors in doing well. So I think the team is a great place right now with a good coach, good coaching staff. Continue to get better, and like you said, it's home soil, so that advantage could go a long way as well.
Generally, how sensitive is it when you have a coaching changeover, but the previous staff had success, and like how does it, like how is that in some ways sometimes more difficult for a new coach or new management, because they can't just say, okay, we're completely starting over.
Yeah, sometimes it's not easy. It's because you have players that are, maybe really comfortable or happy with how things are, and they maybe don't want to see change. So it's never really easy to a team where they're already at a very high level and doing very well. So what I think he has done is he didn't really want to come in and change too much right off the top, and I think that was a very, good thing that he has done, and slowly bringing in his own ways. And you can see that the team has, obviously they're playing a different brand of football, which is very, good for the team. We have the team for it. They're very dynamic, very physical, and that's the style that he likes. And I think it fits well with the team. But just to reiterate, like it's never easy to come into when, things are going really well, and I think he's done very good at that.
Atiba, for those that listen to our podcast and maybe don't know as much about the style of play, that how it's changed, how has, you just mentioned that it's a different style now. How is Jesse Marsh's style a little different than what was played under John Herdman?
I think football in general has been changing over the past few years. It's more of a dynamic game, and I think that's really what he likes. Make sure the team is very organized defensively, and when we get the ball, they look to counterattack and catch teams, on the transition, and he's got the players for that suit it so well. So, we have that in our game now, and you can also see when it's time to possess the ball, we can possess the ball as well. So, I think that's the kind of the main difference. A lot more physical, a lot more up and down, and finding also the balance of keeping the possession as well, I think, is what he likes to implement in the team.
Before we get to the rapid fire part to close off, just one more question, a little bit of a tougher one. I want to ask you, after the tough loss to Belgium in the World Cup, 1-0, you're right there the whole way. I mean, probably should have won the game. John Herdman, who you talk very highly of, changed the culture and the class of the organization, treats you guys like professionals, and that's illustrated a number of ways. He gets does he get carried away with the motion? You can frame it in whatever way you want, but he says something in the press about Croatia after the game. You know, we're going to go out there and F up Croatia, to paraphrase. Did you guys know about that at the time, and do you think that changed Croatia's outlook when they played you in Game 2 of that World Cup?
I definitely think, I mean, for Croatia, they also needed a result, so they're gonna, go into that game like heated and ready to get back on top. But yeah, I think of course, after hearing comments like that, you can see that they were all fired up. You can see the coaches on the side during the game, like, they wanted it that much more. So I think they were really ready to go for that game. And we were as well. We were prepared, and we wanted to back our coach and what he said, and we believed that we could. We obviously were in that game for a large part of the game, and then things just didn't go the right way. Maybe some adjustments that we could have made, but I mean, sometimes in football things like that can happen, and unfortunately we didn't get a result in that game, which would have been good.
Did you, I mean, because he's saying that to the TV cameras, I remember watching it, where I'm watching it. But you're obviously walking off the pitch at that time. So when is it the next day? Are people asking you about, like, when do you first find out that this is even said and it's a big deal?
I think it was the next day. Yeah, it was the next day where I see social media. Some of the guys and your friends are kind of talking about it. I don't know. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. Kind of grew and got bigger and bigger. And from that point, we were just, as a team, we're like, okay, we got to be ready to back our coach here. And we know they're going to be coming at us, but, this is football. So let's go out there. And we believed in ourselves. I think we had done well, and then in the end just fell short.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, Atiba, I know you're a very regimented guy, and you probably got a really busy day with, 4 kids and a life to handle out there. And it's in the probably afternoon in Turkey right now, but we're going to do a quick rapid fire. You can say whatever comes to your mind when we throw out these, it might be just a name of somebody or something, and you tell us what you think. Okay.
All right.
Okay. First thing, Dan Robson.
Best author, amazing guy, real genuine, cool guy.
Nate, you want to go next?
Honduras.
Ooh, you get the chills. Bad memories and tough losses.
Kyle Laren.
Good friend, good guy, quiet guy, big time striker.
Ian Hume or Ian?
Ian Hume, yeah. One of my best mates in football. Grew up playing with him, just like family.
Okay. Theater of Dreams.
Theater of Dreams. Best place to be. Just magical.
You got to, for the context, for those that haven't read the book, grew up, we just talked about it, you watching Dwight York, and then Dwight York playing for Man U, and you want to play there, and you get to play there. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, for me, it was the dream come true. I had watched so many games on TV in that stadium. Was, for me, always the biggest and best stadium in the world. So for me, it was a dream come true to play there.
Nate?
And I just wanted to ask, why is an assist as good as a goal?
Yeah, good question. Because I don't know, the goal's not coming without an assist.
Perfect.
Soca or dance hall?
Soca.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, last thing. You mentioned I don't know if you still do this, but when you're playing, you'd give up something for a year, kind of as an act of discipline. 1 year it was candy, 1 year it was no alcohol. So I wanted to know, have you given up anything in 2024, and are you planning on giving up anything in 2025?
No. Since I've stopped playing football, I haven't given up anything. I'm thinking of what it should be next, so I'll put some more thought into it, and make a decision at some point.
Also, I think this one's for Nate. There was a really great story there. Now, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. When you first met your wife, you had a dog, or she had a dog, and she asked you to take it for a walk. And you're allergic to both dogs and peanuts, and the dog was named Peanut. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm allergic to peanuts. Dogs, I'm not allergic.
Okay, all right.
Some dogs, but for the most part, dogs, I'm not allergic to. But yeah.
But the dog's name is Peanut, correct?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the dog's name is Peanut. Yeah, lost a dog on the first day I went walking it, by the way.
And she still stayed with you, and now you're going to go, and after we're done this, which is right now, you can go and hang out and live happily ever after. So
all right.
What's the plans for you have more press to do with the book? I know you had some press here. What do you hope for as when they go into the Christmas season is the big season in publishing? So are you going to be pushing it towards the holiday season for people to put under the tree and that type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the time where everyone's looking to get the gifts for the kids. So perfect time to sit down and give it a read. And yeah, I hope you like it. And as I said before, this is just a way for me to kind of tell my story and just help kids, help people along the way, and just to stay persistent, believing in yourself, staying consistent, and always working hard.
Thank you for your time today, Atiba. We hope you have a great weekend. And it was awesome to hear your story and read your story.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Great talk.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much.